Tempest Trials Plus Till Song's End has arrived to go along with this year's dancing themed banner. I'm making this video before the event has started, so forgive any mistakes. I will update the description and my pinned comment should something be off drastically. Now for rewards, if you earn the maximum 50,000 points, you will earn up to 42 orbs, 11,000 feathers, and 80 sacred coins. The blessing this time is an earth blessing to go along with legendary Julia, should you have managed to summon her last month. For sacred seals, we have HP and attack 2, Atk Feint, and defense and res bond. Our Tempest Trials reward unit this time is dancer Rinea, and she is Berkut's fiance. Rinea doesn't have an actual normal class, so I suppose you can consider this her normal version, and she is dressed quite similarly anyway. You can earn a 4-star and 5-star version of her. We'll now talk about our new sacred seals and Rinea as a unit in more detail. Our first sacred seal is HP and attack 2. This skill grants plus 4 HP and plus 2 attack, a very simple stat booster. It's not a bad skill if you have nothing else important to slot in. The most practical usage will be on units who have high HP based abilities such as Aversa, or units with skills like Panic Ploy. There's not many specific builds to be had with these abilities, so upgrade them at your own discretion. Next up, we have the Atk Feint seal. If a rally assist skill is used by unit or target's unit, inflict a -7 attack debuff on foes in cardinal directions of unit through their next actions. Now, obviously to use Atk Feint, you will need to be running a rally skill, but the Atk Feint user doesn't necessarily have to be the one with the rally buff. The debuff will only be emitted from the Atk Feint user, however, so you have to position carefully to use this skill effectively. Since this is the first Feint skill to have a sacred seal, technically double Feint skill builds are now an option that would allow a unit to inflict -7 debuffs to 2 stats from all the way across the map, and while that is exciting, it may not be so simple to pull off depending on the map layout. You can also have your double Feint user rally another ally with a third Feint skill to emit even more debuffs, but that requires even more positioning to set up fully. While it's nice to see Atk Feint as a sacred seal, these abilities have kind of been pushed to the side with the introduction of the Ruse B skills. Those function the same way as the Feint skills, but they emit -5 debuffs to 2 stats and the guard status on the enemy, plus it comes out of both the rally user and the ally target. While Feints provide a bigger single debuff, the ease of use from the rally skills just make them more consistent when put into practice. You can do a defense/res Ruse B skill plus Atk Feint sacred seal build for triple debuffs, but just keep in mind the differences between the two abilities. The stat difference with a rally buff on your ally and a debuff on the enemy can be powerful, so if you enjoy rally skills, then give Atk Feint a try. They are fun, but positioning is the most important aspect to using them effectively. Last, we have the defense/res bond 3 seal. If unit is adjacent to an ally, grants defense and res +5 during combat. Since bonds are pretty easy to set up in defensive maneuvers, getting your tank +5 defense and res for any fight is quite nice. You'll get the most usage out of this seal by using it on an enemy phase baiter and letting the enemies come to you first. It can also work on the player phase, but you may instead want a bond skill that offers extra attack or speed. Defense and res bond can definitely have a place in a build because unlike close defense or distant defense, the bond skills will work against melee and ranged units. You lose 1 defense and res, but trading it for versatility is nice. This skill would work wonders on distant counter or close counter units since they are fighting both threats. If you can keep a tight formation or even just want to be next to one ally, then defense and res bond can be a useful ability. It's not necessarily a must upgrade sacred seal, but it's certainly the best one to upgrade out of this group if you have some extra coins. Our reward unit this time is Rinea, which is quite a surprise. She is an infantry dancer and a blue mage, so she can run some nice support abilities for her teammates. As a dancer, Rinea's main job will be to help her allies, so her combative abilities aren't a huge focus, but we will talk about stats a bit later on. For new players, Rinea will be a great unit because having more dancers is very useful for game modes that require you to craft multiple teams on the fly. New players can also earn a free 5-star Ninian from the new Heroes Path quest, so you have some options. For stats, Rinea has 30 HP, 30 attack, 33 speed, 23 defense, and 28 resistance. Overall, not a bad stat line all things considered. For a dancer, her attack and speed are pretty respectable, and her defensive bulk isn't awful either. She can definitely take a hit, which is a good trait to have for your support units. For skills, Rinea has the Silver Goblet Plus. This is an inheritable 12 might blue tome that has the same effect as Dancer Nephene's bow from the banner. It grants +4 defense and res to allies within 2 spaces when they fight a ranged unit. In other words, this is a tome with Distant Guard 3, and it's not a bad support weapon if you stack it with other buffing skills. In terms of combative power, this weapon doesn't do anything for Rinea, so if you want her to do some fighting, you may want another tome. Rinea's other skills consist of Dance, naturally. Her A skill is Bracing Blow, which grants +4 defense and res when initiating. Honestly, I do not see the skill much at all, and if you want a more protective A skill for attackers, the Impact A skills are some of the best you can get nowadays. If you want to attack with Rinea, she has good bulk to build upon, but she isn't super tanky, so I wouldn't say it's the greatest skill on hand. It will keep her alive, sure, but if you are the one making the attack, then maybe some extra attacker speed would be appreciated instead. Now, for Rinea's B skill, it's Fire Flood Dance 2. When she dances an ally, she will grant them +3 attack and +4 res for 1 turn. With room for C skill and Sacred Seal buffs, plus Distant Guard from her Silver Goblet, Rinea can act like a typical supportive dancer without a ton of investment. If you want to use Rinea but not put a ton of merge investment into her, then let's consider what she gets from a +1 merge. Normally, Rinea would get +1 HP and +1 speed. Thanks to the neutral nature, she will also get an additional +1 HP, +1 attack, and +1 speed again. This brings her up to 40 HP, 31 attack, and 35 speed, some pretty useful stats and not bad for a dancer. Moving on, I want to talk about Rinea and her stats. Normally, dancers have pretty pitiful stats because their base stat totals are much lower than normal units, as supposed to compensate for their powerful refreshing ability. Some dancers are really well min-maxed, like Dancer Xander with high attack and defense, but the low stat totals means their other stats take a really big hit. This year, the dancers from this banner got some insane stat power creep. You can see that Rinea's base stat total is 13 points higher than both Shigure and Legendary Azura. While I would still consider Azura the better dancer purely for her incredible support abilities, when we are looking at combat potential, these big stat differences will start to make a difference. Rinea just has so much extra defensive stats to work with, and that is useful if she ends up in danger. Here's a look at just how high Rinea's stats are. You can see that she has the 5th highest stat total, and this is for all blue mages. Valentine's Lyn still tops the group as an army unit naturally should, but you can even see that Legendary Julia is right behind her, so power creep is coming. This is just a look at the top of the list, and unlisted are all the cavalry blue mages and of course all of our other dancers. I wouldn't say Rinea is a combative beast since her stats are all spread out, but definitely do not underestimate her. Speaking of stat power creep, I never got to talk about the stats of our dancers on the banner, and oh boy, it's pretty disgusting. Literally all of them are good enough to use for battle if you wish, and just replace dance on them with another assist skill. Dancer Nephany is particularly disgusting since she actually has better offenses than even Bright Cordelia, who has been the respectable offensive standard with her 35 attack and 35 speed stat spread. Besides the armored archers and legendary Alm, the new Nephany has more total stats than everyone else, and that's with the dancer penalty. Pretty crazy stuff. For builds, Rinea will probably want to stick to being a normal supportive dancer. Despite everything we just went over regarding stats, she isn't going to specialize in offense or defense since her stats are all spread out. She can pull off both, but don't expect her to be on the same level as some of the other banner units who also have incredible weapons like Reinhardt and Ishtar. For the most part, you can keep Rinea's base kit intact. The only thing I don't really care for is Bracing Blow, but there are a bunch of other options out there. To fill out the rest of Rinea's build, you want to choose buffs that complement the Silver Goblet and even Fire Flood Dance should you keep it. It's expensive, but you can double down on Distant Guard for +8 defense and res against ranged threats, but you could also just go with Drive, Spurs, or Tactic buffs as well. As an infantry mage, Rinea can also use the new Infantry Hexblade C skill to provide adaptive damage for her fellow teammates. If you can go the Raven Tome route, then Triangle Depth can be a nice skill to specialize better, and can be fine in general if you keep her away from green enemies. As a dancer, Rinea's main job is to dance her teammates, so you may want to invest in her own survivability for those dicey situations. To wrap up this video, let's recap. The 3 Sacred Seals this time are actually all pretty rare skills. HP and Attack 2 is only on 2 5 stars, Atk Feint is on 2 5 stars, and Defense and Res Bond is only on Winter Fae. For HP Attack 2, it's a somewhat niche skill, but ultimately you can't go wrong with just extra stats. Atk Feint is a neat tool for rally users to help apply long range debuffs. It can be powerful, but is heavily reliant on positioning, and that can make it tough to use depending on the map and enemy layout. As for Defense and Res Bond, I would say it's the best seal from the group. If you like distant defense and close defense, this is another tool for staying alive, and it can work on melee or ranged threats, just at the cost of being next to an ally. Probably a good seal for units with distant counter or close counter abilities that want extra defense and resistance. As for Rinea, she is a rather simple but good dancer, especially for being free to play. Her higher stats give her decent bulk compared to her peers, but she lacks some super unique abilities to make her better than these summonable dancers. Distant guard is nice though and provides some extra support against ranged enemies. Give her boss a stack with it and she makes for a good choice on maps with tons of ranged threats. There is Young Gazura for another free to play dancer, but for newer players starting this year, Rinea will be a good treat for them. Like I always say, you can never have enough dancers. That's all I got for this video. Hopefully you can farm up these rewards. Let me know what your thoughts are on these new secret seals, Rinea, or just the event in general. My orb stash has recovered nicely and I'm excited to get it even higher, so I want to get those orbs. Speaking of orbs, the new dancers look like absolute monsters, so if you're still trying to summon for them, I wish you good luck. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next video.